The story kicks off in a hidden spot deep inside a dungeon. This was the place where a brown-haired boy named Vail lived and worked on a farm with some friendly girls. Some time ago, in the royal castle of the Kingdom of Krenz, Vail was called to step forward at the Grand Cathedral. He was there to take part in the Divine Blessing ceremony. In this yearly event, every 15-year-old was given a special item based on their power and future. For the first time, Vail felt nervous. Everyone in the room recognized his name. He was the son of the famous Orland family, a powerful group of knights almost as important as royalty. Because of that, people believed Vail would receive the Divine Sword. That sword was perfect for someone joining the Knight Order, which was what everyone expected from him. He stood in front of a large treasure chest. A priest asked him to pour his magic into it. As Vail focused, something strange happened. He suddenly felt like he had done this before. He didn't just know about the ceremony, he remembered it from long ago, even before he was born in this world. That's when he realized something important. He had memories from his past life. In that past life, Vail had been a regular office worker. He worked too much and was always tired. But there was one thing that helped him get through each day. A game he played for 10 years. It was called Fantasy Farm Online. That game had now become the world he lived in. It was a place filled with swords and magic, but what made it special was the peaceful farm life. People could plant crops, raise animals, and enjoy simple days. For someone who was always stressed, it had felt like a dream. Vail also remembered that he was now inside the game's opening event. In this event, the item you pull from the chest decides what your life will be like from then on. While he stood still, lost in thought, the priest asked if something was wrong. That question brought Vail back to the moment. Now that his memories had returned, he knew what he truly wanted. And it wasn't the Divine Sword, there was something even better for him. He continued pouring his magic into the chest until it made a clicking sound. The lid slowly opened. Inside was a sword he knew well. It was the Dragonwood Saber, the one he had always wanted. He cheered with joy, surprising the priest. Vail had found the perfect sword, and he was truly excited for what came next. Vail walked out of the ritual room, and everyone waited to see what kind of sword he had received. He held it up high, wanting everyone to notice it, but as soon as they saw it, the crowd went quiet. Vail felt awkward and didn't understand why no one said anything. People started whispering and wondering what kind of sword he had. To them, it just looked like a piece of wood carved to look like a blade. They couldn't help but laugh when they saw how proud Vail was holding it. At first, Vail believed the sword was special, but after seeing everyone's reaction, he began to realize the truth. It was just a wooden sword. Then someone told him to step aside. It was Durk, Vail's cousin. Durk pointed out that Vail was blocking the way for the next person. Everyone noticed how calm and confident Durk was. A moment later, Durk entered the ritual room. A bright light shone from inside, and everyone knew what that meant. Durk came out holding the Divine Sword. The weapon meant only for the one chosen to save the world. Vail stood quietly, watching his cousin hold the sword that his father had once hoped he would earn. Later at the mansion, Vail's father made a public announcement. He officially declared Durk as his son, calling him remarkable for claiming the Divine Sword. But when it came to Vail, he had no words. He called him a disgrace for embarrassing the family in front of everyone. He said he never wanted to see Vail again and told him to leave the house, taking his wooden sword with him. And just like that, Vail was no longer part of the Orland family. Vail couldn't believe they had called his sword pathetic. He knew what it could do, and he was ready to prove it. Honestly, Vail was never meant to be a noble. Now that he had let go of that life, he felt free. He decided to leave the family's future to Durk. From now on, he was going to live for himself. He wanted to be a farmer. So it was time for him to really dive into the world of Fantasy Farm Online. The next morning, Vail woke up in a cheap inn room in the town of Frem. He didn't sleep well, but he didn't care. He had his sword, and that was enough. His sword looked like the Dragonwood Saber. It made crops grow faster and made their leaves and fruits strong enough to keep bugs away. Basically, it gave a big boost to anyone trying to be a good farmer. For someone like Vail, who had always dreamed of farming, this sword felt like a gift. He remembered how the game worked. Players could plant crops and enjoy a peaceful farm life. But they could also go on quests, explore dungeons, and fight monsters. The game felt relaxing, but it also gave players the freedom to do what they wanted. That day, Vail was heading to a special place, a great spot to begin his new life as a farmer. After walking through the woods, he finally found the entrance to a dungeon. He hoped that the place he was looking for really existed inside. As he stepped into the dungeon, he was surprised to see how bright it was. The path ahead felt familiar, like something from his memories. He followed it until he reached a dead end. But Vail knew this was the right spot. Just past this point was where he wanted to go. He got ready to move forward, but then he heard a scream. A girl was shouting for help. A giant boar-like monster with sharp fangs was charging at her. She looked trapped. But then, the girl took a deep breath and raised her thin sword toward the monster. Vail watched for a moment, amazed, but then he shook it off. He had to help. He ran over to her, stood by her side, and stabbed his dragonwood saber into the ground. The girl looked confused and asked him why he did that. Vail told her this was how his sword worked. The boar tried to charge at them, but suddenly vines rose from the ground and wrapped around the monster, trapping it in place. Vail felt relieved. It worked. The girl stood there, confused, as she watched plants grow from the ground right after Vail had stabbed it with his sword. Somehow it stopped the monster from moving. Vail told the girl it was her chance now. She looked at him unsure. He told her to finish the monster. She took a deep breath, held her sword tighter, and stood in front of the boar. Gathering her courage, she ran toward it. Vail was amazed at how fast she moved, even with the big bag on her back. She lifted her sword and swung it straight down with all her strength, cutting through the boar's huge face. The hit was so strong that the monster dropped to the ground, dead. Vail could hardly believe it. She had taken down that giant beast in just one blow. The girl looked at her shaking hand and smiled. She happily told Vail they had done it. Vail said she was amazing, but right after that her legs gave out. Before she could fall, Vail caught her and carried her in his arms. The girl was surprised and said she had relaxed for a moment, which made her legs stop working. Vail could tell she had given it her all and asked if she was okay. Even though she was still shaking, she said she was fine. Vail warned her that falling on her own could be dangerous, especially with so many rocks around. The girl tried to explain again, but Vail pointed out how she was already swaying. He told her to take a break. She had nothing more to say, and then passed out. Vail saw her lose consciousness and realized she had really pushed herself too far. It made sense. She had just fought one of the strongest monsters in the area. He looked around and knew he couldn't leave her in such a dangerous place full of monsters. He gently laid her down nearby, then pulled out his dragonwood saber. Vail stabbed his sword into the ground and used his magic to call Woodman. A wooden puppet appeared. Woodman was a kind of helper that could be summoned using the dragonwood saber. How strong the Woodman became depended on how much it was leveled up, and that could really change how hard the game felt. Vail decided to summon more. In the end, 5 Woodmen stood before him, all listening to his commands. He was happy to have them, but he also knew it would be hard to give them orders one by one. When he looked closely, he noticed each Woodman had a different face, so he gave each one a name. They all made a sound, and Vail guessed they liked the names. His first order was simple: help carry the giant boar and their gear. Woodmen were great at carrying heavy things, but they couldn't fight. The dragonwood saber wasn't made for fighting either. Since they had no way to defend themselves, Vail thought it was smart to find a safe place quickly. He remembered a certain wall from his time playing the game. He tapped on the wall at what looked like a dead end and found a magic circle. This was what he had been searching for, the entrance to a secret path inside the dungeon. Seeing it in real life felt way cooler than it did in the game. He told the Woodman to follow him. As they walked through the hidden path, Vail couldn't believe what was happening. He had stared at these scenes in the game for so long, and now he was walking through them for real. It didn't feel real at all. At the end of the path, they found an underground lake surrounded by green plants and trees. This place was well known by serious gamers. You couldn't even see the magic circle at the entrance unless you were carrying the dragonwood saber. That's why this spot was one of the rarest in the game. With that rarity came some amazing rewards. Still, just being there in person blew Vail's mind. He thought the view alone looked like something from a computer wallpaper. For now, he laid the tired girl down to rest and called the Woodmen. He told them they needed to build a home near the lake. It was going to be a busy day. The Woodmen seemed to like the idea and cheered together. Vail pulled out his sword and walked toward the lake. He stabbed it into the ground near the edge. This underground lake was special. It was surrounded by rocks and minerals that couldn't be found anywhere else. Because of that, magical energy leaked into the water. Drinking it could bring back all your lost mana. In short, the whole lake was like one big bottle of holy water. Now that his sword was full of mana again, Vail asked it to help him build a shelter while it was still dark. He trusted his sword and held a seed in his hand, ready to begin. Not long after, the girl woke up. She looked around, unsure of where she was. Then she froze when she saw a huge tree twisting and moving nearby. It was growing incredibly fast, and she wasn't sure if she was dreaming. Suddenly, Vail heard her scream. The tree's roots had wrapped around her. He rushed over and quickly pulled the roots away to set her free. He apologized, saying he hadn't expected the roots to reach her. The girl felt embarrassed to be carried by him again. She asked where they were, and Vail told her they were still inside the same dungeon. She was surprised because the place looked too beautiful to be part of a dungeon. She asked about the strange tree that was still growing right in front of them. Vail told her it was called a Widley tree, a type that grows very fast. He had just planted it. The girl was shocked that such a tree existed. Vail didn't explain everything. He couldn't say that the seed wasn't normal because it wasn't. It was something special, made by his sword's power. His sword, the dragonwood saber, had a unique ability. It could create something called a divine seed. These seeds could grow fruits and vegetables that were said to only exist in the heavens. The effect was so powerful it almost felt like cheating. The sword was truly one of a kind. Even then, the girl couldn't believe how fast the tree was growing. It was now towering over them. Vail wasn't surprised. The seed he used was extremely rare and could only be found in dangerous places. The girl asked why he planted the tree. Vail said he wanted to use the wood to build a treehouse, something he had been planning for a while. The girl pictured a treehouse, but maybe not the kind he had in mind. Then the tree finally stopped growing. Vail looked at it and said it was ready. First, Vail cut off the tree branches using his sword. The girl clapped her hands, impressed by what he did. After cutting the branches, Vail planned to use them later to make simple furniture. The girl was surprised to learn that Vail built things by himself. Vail checked if the girl was feeling better. She paused for a moment, then said she was fine. Since he had saved her, she wanted to help as a way to say thank you. But Vail said it was okay because it was his place. She had just been unconscious not long ago, so he told her to keep resting. Still, the girl insisted on helping. She said she was used to doing this kind of work and even showed off her thin arms. Vail remembered how she had lifted a huge bag earlier. Even so, he told her it was fine because the woodmen were there to help. The woodmen also tried to show their muscles even though they didn't really have any. The girl agreed to step back but looked a little sad. The woodmen tried to cheer her up, but she said she was okay. Vail thought she was polite and kind, and he started to feel a bit guilty. He then told the woodmen to start working. They all used the tools well, and Vail was happy to see how smoothly things were going. He realized they would finish everything faster than he had expected. While watching from the side, the girl wondered if there was something she could do. She looked at her large bag and suddenly got an idea. A while later, Vail's eyes lit up as he looked at the house and the furniture. Everything turned out better than he had hoped. There were still more things he needed, but for now it was good enough to live in. The sunlight came in nicely, so he didn't even need lamps during the day. He thanked the woodmen for finishing everything in just a few hours. When it was finally time for a break, Vail told them to relax. He went to his bed and lay down. There were still many things he wanted to do, but he knew he could take his time. After all, he had all the time in the world. Vail only meant to take a short nap, but when he woke up, it was already dark outside. He had slept for a long time and even made the girl wait. When he looked out, he saw a glowing spot in the distance. Curious, he stepped outside and the girl was there to greet him. He asked what was going on. The girl explained that since she couldn't do any heavy work, she decided to cook dinner as a way to thank him. Vail felt bad that it was already so late, but she said it was actually the perfect time. She thanked him again for saving her earlier and then introduced herself as Martina. She said she was pretty good at cooking and then asked for his name. Vail got a bit nervous because he had forgotten to introduce himself. He also didn't want to mention his full name, so he just said his name was Vail. Martina shook his hand and said it was nice to meet him. Then she invited him to have dinner, saying it wasn't anything fancy. Vail said it already looked fancy to him. He noticed that the meat was from the giant boar they had fought earlier. After tasting it, he said it was really good, and Martina was happy to hear that. She told him he deserved it and kept giving him side dishes. Vail felt like she was spoiling him. Martina also thanked him for letting her land the final hit on the boar, saying it was a great experience for her as a beginner adventurer. Vail said it only worked because of her attack. He then asked if she was part of a group. Martina looked embarrassed and said no. Seeing her reaction and how new she seemed, Vail guessed that she had just started out. Martina was surprised by how quickly he figured it out, but Vail just thought she was easy to understand. Martina asked Vail why he was in the dungeon. Vail calmly said he came to start a farm. Martina didn't understand at first. She asked again if they were really inside a dungeon and wondered if that was even possible. Vail explained that the tree they saw earlier and the woodmen were created using the power of his dragonwood saber. Martina was shocked that such a simple-looking sword could do all that, especially summoning the woodmen. He went on to say that the land inside this hidden dungeon was perfect for growing crops. Martina thought that was amazing, and Vail agreed. Vail thanked her for the meal she made, but Martina was just happy to see him enjoy it. Still, she felt a little guilty for staying longer than she planned. Since it was dangerous to leave at night, Vail invited her to stay. Martina thanked him for the offer. Vail then told the woodman to keep watch outside. He led Martina to a room. She liked how it looked, and Vail was glad. After that, he left to let her rest and wished her a good night. Martina asked where he was going, and he said he'd sleep outside since there was only one bedroom. Martina was surprised and said he should be the one to sleep inside. It was his new home after all. But Vail said he couldn't let a girl sleep outside at night. Martina didn't listen and pushed him onto the bed, telling him to stay there. Vail tried to leave, but Martina was too strong and made him stay put. In the end, Vail had no choice but to sleep on the bed. As he lay there, he started thinking about building a guest room and planting a vegetable patch. He had so many things he wanted to do and hoped to do his best. Still, he felt awkward about sharing the bed with a girl. Martina, on the other hand, fell asleep right away. She was so tired that she ended up using Vail like a pillow. The next morning, Vail woke up feeling surprisingly refreshed. He looked around for Martina and saw her kneeling on the floor. Vail asked if she had slept well. Martina said she did, but she felt a bit guilty for falling asleep while leaning on him. She thought it might have been rude. Vail understood, he knew how tired she had been. She asked if he got any cramps so she could give him a massage. Vail said he was fine, but when she asked again to make sure, he started to feel worried. She had been working hard the day before, both defending and attacking, and now he wondered if she was okay. Martina then said she had made breakfast and invited Vail to eat with her. He tried the dried meat sandwiches and thought they were delicious. Martina smiled when she saw how much he enjoyed them. She also mentioned that the woodmen didn't need to eat. They got energy from the soil and sunlight, just like plants. After breakfast, Vail decided to get back to building his peaceful life. He found a good spot to grow crops. He took his dragonwood saber and stabbed it into the ground. Martina was surprised when the soil started to till itself quickly. Roots from the sword spread through the ground. Vail was happy it worked and saw that the soil was healthy. Next, Vail pointed the sword toward the sky. A seed formed at the tip. Martina looked surprised and asked what kind of seed it was. Vail said it was a flame tomato. Martina was shocked. Those were rare vegetables that could make fire magic stronger. Vail confirmed she was right. Martina was amazed that he could create seeds so easily. Flame tomatoes were just the beginning. There were also crops that gave materials and others that had magical uses. Some could restore mana, while others were ingredients for making magical tools. Vail thought it was the right season to grow tomatoes, but he planned to grow more types of plants later. He asked the woodmen to help water the crops. They all agreed. Martina joined them too, which surprised both Vail and the woodmen. When they asked why, she simply said she felt like helping. Vail smiled and told everyone to do their best again. Vail and the woodmen took turns getting water from the lake while Martina watered the young plants. In just a short time, the seeds quickly grew into small trees. But they didn't stop there. They kept growing until they were much taller than everyone. Vail realized they could start harvesting in the afternoon and decided they would make the field bigger the next day. Martina was still amazed at how fast the plants grew. She looked forward to picking the crops and trying to cook them. Vail said she could, but since he knew how good Martina was at cooking, he couldn't help but wonder why she chose to become an adventurer instead. Martina then shared that she once read the life story of an adventurer who traveled the world, found ingredients, cooked them, and ate them. He lived on his own and also helped people along the way. She admired that kind of life and wanted to live like him. That's why she worked hard to become an adventurer too. Vail thought it was a great goal, to be both a cook and an adventurer. Martina then asked what they should do while waiting for the crops to grow. At that moment, Vail started to understand the kind of person Martina was. Before he went to sleep the night before, he remembered the main characters from the game. Martina wasn't one of them. Even though he was sure he was inside the game world, he chose to go with the flow and see what would happen. He then told her they would plant bell peppers next. By the afternoon, tomato fruits had already started to form. Martina was still surprised at how fast the plants had grown. Vail suggested they try the fruits right away. Martina reached out to grab one, but she couldn't get it on her own. To her surprise, Vail lifted her up and asked her to grab one for him too. They each took a bite. Even though the fruit wasn't cooked, it tasted really good. Martina explained that these kinds of vegetables were hard to grow and took a long time, so only a few farmers could handle them. Vail said it was all thanks to the underground lake, but he realized he had grown too many. Since the vegetables were so tasty, Martina suggested selling them in town. She said adventurers liked vegetables like these and there would probably be a lot of buyers. Vail remembered that he also needed to look for daily supplies and find a wholesaler. Martina thought about it and told him there was a town nearby called Dorison with a great item shop. Vail was excited to visit but asked if it would really be okay. Martina told him not to worry. His vegetables were delicious and she could recommend them herself. Hearing that, Vail decided to give it a try. He wasn't sure if the deal would work out, but he knew it was a good first step. Martina cheerfully told him to leave the town guide to her and said they should start preparing to leave. Vail called her reliable, though he found it rare to get help this eager. He even wondered if they didn't need to explore dungeons at all. Then he thought maybe they could ask the woodmen to help carry the goods. Just then, the woodmen had an idea. They grabbed tools and branches and started building fences. Vail told Martina that only the two of them should go to town. Before they left, one of the woodmen tapped Martina on the shoulder. She could tell they were cheering for her and Vail to have a good time. Embarrassed, Martina quickly told them they were misunderstanding. It wasn't a date. Vail asked if something was wrong, but Martina, blushing, said it was nothing. The woodmen were acting like perfect wingmen. After packing a bag full of tomatoes, Vail apologized to Martina for asking her to help carry them. He thought they should build a cart next time. Martina said she didn't mind at all. Vail then asked what kind of item shop they were going to. Martina said it was the biggest one in Dorison, called the Raymar Company's shop. When Vail heard the name, he looked shocked. Martina asked if he knew them. The Raymar company had strict rules, but getting an exclusive contract with them to sell crops gave a lot of financial stability. Vail counted on that during the game, and it turned out to be something really valuable. The leader of the company, Gregory Raymar, was called the Great Merchant. He built the company all by himself and became one of the most skilled characters in the game. Vail often wondered what he was like in real life. He hoped to make a wholesale deal with him, but it would be hard since he didn't have any connections yet. While traveling, Vail was deep in thought when Martina suddenly saw someone lying on the ground. Vail also noticed a woman groaning in pain. Martina quickly ran to her and asked if she was okay. The woman said she had run out of magic power. She explained that some monsters were causing trouble outside of town, and her team had sent her to buy items to restore magic. But now she couldn't even walk. She was worried that they wouldn't be able to stop the monsters in time. Martina realized things were serious and wondered how they could help. Then Vail remembered they had some flame tomatoes with them. He took one out of the bag and gave it to the woman to help restore her magic. She was shocked that he would give away such a rare and valuable item so easily, but Vail told her not to worry. Gratefully, the woman took it and took a bite. Right away, her magic power started coming back rapidly. She was amazed at how fast it worked. Vail and Martina looked happy to see that it was helping. The woman also said it tasted really good even though it was raw. Vail was surprised, and Martina was happy hearing the compliment. Then Vail offered to bring the rest of the flame tomatoes to her teammates. The woman thanked them and led the way. They soon arrived at the scene where many monsters were being held back by other adventurers. A wolf tried to attack Vail and Martina, but the woman from earlier quickly stepped in. She used a fire magic spell and burned the monster into ashes. Vail thanked her for helping them, but the woman seemed more surprised by how strong her magic was. Just then, her teammates called out to her asking why she was so slow. She apologized, and they asked why her magic had suddenly become so powerful since she wasn't usually like that. The woman explained that Vail and Martina had given her some ingredients that helped bring back her magic energy. Vail then offered the others some too. They were surprised, took their share, and called him a lifesaver. As soon as they took a bite of the tomato, their magic returned right away. They couldn't believe that just one bite could make such a big difference. Now that their magic was fully back, they turned their focus to the monsters. Vail and Martina watched nervously from behind as the women raised their wands. Together they cast a powerful spell, sending a huge wave of fire at the monsters. Most of them were burned and the rest ran away. Vail was shocked by how strong the spell was. He couldn't believe that the vegetables he had grown could help adventurers in battle. Still, it made him happy. The women thanked Vail for his help. He said he was glad and started to leave with Martina. But the woman stopped them, saying they hadn't been paid for the tomatoes yet. She offered to pay them. Vail told her not to worry, but she suddenly pulled out a bag of gold coins and asked if it was enough. Vail was surprised by how much money she gave, but she said it was a fair price for what the tomatoes did. Vail thanked her and accepted the payment. She also asked if she could buy the rest of the tomatoes. Vail agreed, still surprised. Martina was even more surprised that their very first customer also became their first repeat one. After saying goodbye to the adventurers, Martina was surprised that everything was already sold out before they even reached town. She congratulated Vail for the success. Vail said he was surprised too, but he felt happy that the tomatoes he grew were useful to others. That small success gave him some confidence. He promised himself that he would work hard to grow vegetables good enough to supply an entire guild. Martina smiled when she heard that and said she would help him. Vail felt comforted by her support. For now, the two decided to go shopping in town since they finally had some money. Martina suggested they buy everything they needed. At the same time, the woman from earlier went into a shop to buy some healing potions. But instead of being welcomed, she heard someone yelling angrily about some bad vegetables. The person complained that the vegetables tasted strange and looked odd. He scolded the seller and sent him away. The woman just stood there and watched. She commented that Gregory was still as strict as ever, even though he had a good eye for quality. Gregory said he couldn't let low-quality items be sold in his store. The woman worried that being so picky might make it harder for him to offer more kinds of vegetables. Gregory replied that he didn't have a choice because there weren't any good farms nearby. Then he asked if the woman needed any magic potions this time. She said she didn't because she had just bought some amazing tomatoes. She explained that just one bite gave her magic energy right away, and even made her magic stronger. She said the tomatoes helped her defeat monsters quickly. Gregory became curious and asked to see one. The woman showed him a sample. Gregory looked at the tomato carefully and said it was excellent. Vail and Martina soon arrived in the town of Dorison. The town looked busy and full of life. Martina explained that many merchants often visited the place because it was located between two big cities in the east and west. It served as a stopover for travelers. That was also why the town had many inns and restaurants. Although the town became quieter in the afternoon, the market still stayed fun and active. Martina suggested walking along the main street and trying out food from the stalls. Vail enjoyed doing that. After walking around, Martina asked what they should buy. Vail said he needed some things like bed sheets, glass for his windows, and a few other supplies. Martina shared that she had planned to visit the Merchant Guild, but they had already run out of tomatoes. Instead, she suggested they visit a furniture shop. She also mentioned that if they bought many items, the shop could lend them a wagon to carry everything. Vail agreed to go. Later, Vail was surprised to see how big the furniture shop was. Martina told him the shop had everything he might need. She showed him a section where they could try out different pillows and sleeping mats. The store reminded Vail of the ones he had seen in his past life. Vail found it hard to choose, but in the end he picked the cheapest pillow. Martina told him not to settle for less because good sleep was important for a good life. Since the store let customers test the furniture, she encouraged him to try things out. They ended up testing many items, and before they knew it, time had passed quickly. Vail had tried so many beds that he couldn't decide which one was the best. Martina agreed and mentioned that a king-sized bed was comfortable to lie on. Vail started to wonder if he should get a bigger bed. Somehow Martina misunderstood and thought he meant they would be sleeping together. However, Vail quickly realized he would be sleeping alone, so he chose a regular-sized bed instead. When it came to pillows, Vail had narrowed it down to 2 options. Martina said both of them felt nice. To help him decide, Vail closed his eyes and leaned onto one of the pillows. But instead of hitting a pillow, his face landed somewhere else. He quickly realized he had leaned on Martina by mistake. Embarrassed, he apologized and backed away. Martina also said sorry, thinking it was partly her fault for being unclear. The two of them blushed and stayed quiet for a moment before finally picking the pillows they wanted. By the time they got back home, it was already nighttime. They returned with a wagon full of things they had bought. To their surprise, the plants in their garden had already grown a lot. Martina was amazed that the Thunderbell peppers had grown so fast. Vail agreed and said it was more than he expected. The fences had also been set up, making the place look more like a real farm. Vail thanked the woodman for taking care of the house and for building the fences. They had also prepared other rooms and added furniture. Vail thought they were very dependable. One of the woodmen smiled at Martina and asked how the outing had gone. Martina quickly said it wasn't a date. Vail saw that the vegetables would be ready to pick the next morning. Before bringing them to the Merchant Guild, he wanted to try one himself. Martina asked if she could use some of them for dinner while they were at it. Vail said yes, and Martina told him to leave the cooking to her. While she worked on dinner, Vail decided to sort out the supplies they had bought. He asked the woodman to help him. As they moved the wagon together, Vail thought about how lucky they were to find the tomatoes. But after today's shopping, most of their money was already gone. He hoped that next time the Merchant Guild would buy his crops. If things went well, they might even get a steady trade deal. Suddenly, one of the woodmen tugged on Vail's sleeve. Vail asked what was wrong. The woodman pointed in a direction and tried to say something. At first, Vail thought he was talking about something under the lake, but then he realized the woodman was pointing above it. Vail looked up, and at that moment, a girl fell from the sky. He quickly noticed that she was going to land on a sharp rock. If she hit it, she could get seriously hurt. Vail hoped he had made it in time. He stabbed his dragonwood saber into the ground, and roots quickly grew from it. Just below the falling girl, the roots formed a large hand that caught her. Martina came out after hearing the sound of the roots moving. She asked if something was wrong. She was surprised to see a girl lying there. Vail explained that the girl had fallen through a hole in the ceiling. Even though she was unconscious, he said she seemed okay. For now, Vail carried the girl to a room made by the woodman so she could rest. He didn't know why she ended up underground or who she was, but he said he would watch over her. Martina looked worried. She hoped the girl was safe, but at the same time she was unsure if the girl might be dangerous. Later in the room, Vail sat and stared at the unconscious girl. He wondered who she was. From her clothes and what she carried, she didn't seem like a normal person. Her outfit looked more like a uniform. Maybe she was a mage. Then the girl suddenly opened her eyes and looked at Vail. Her wide, still eyes made Vail think she looked like a doll for a moment. He asked if she was alright since she had passed out earlier. At that moment, the girl shouted, asking who Vail was and where she had ended up. She was upset and accused Vail of planning something bad against her. Vail told her to calm down and explained that they were on a farm inside a dungeon. He said she had suddenly fallen from above and he had caught her. The girl, still confused, asked how that was possible. Vail explained that he had used his sword's power to make plants grow and turn into a cushion to break her fall. But the girl didn't believe him and told him to stop saying things that didn't make sense. Vail realized she wouldn't believe him just by showing his sword. The girl said she couldn't handle the situation anymore and insisted that she had to get to the forest quickly. Vail tried to stop her because it was the middle of the night and too dangerous to go alone. He gently touched her shoulder and asked her to rest a bit longer. The girl got angry and told Vail not to touch her. Just then, she lost her balance and accidentally fell into Vail's arms. She blamed him, saying he was trying to take advantage of her, but Vail said he didn't mean to do anything wrong. Suddenly, Martina showed up at the worst possible time. She asked nervously if the two were already getting along as friends. Vail quickly said she was getting the wrong idea. Martina then held out a bowl of vegetable marinade she had made. Vail said it looked tasty, just like he expected. Martina offered some to the girl and tried to feed her, but the girl shouted that she didn't want it and knocked the fork out of Martina's hand. Martina was shocked that the girl would waste food like that, without even thinking about the person who made it. The girl asked why Martina was suddenly giving her a lecture and told her to move out of the way. Vail tried to warn the girl that the carnivorous plants in the area became more active at night, and said it would be safer to wait until morning. But the girl said those plants weren't scary, just annoying. After being quiet for a while, Martina got angry and asked why the girl was acting so rude to someone who helped her. The girl, clearly annoyed, asked what their problem was. She said she was busy and claimed that no one could seriously grow crops in a place like the inside of a dungeon. Then she told them to go ahead and play farming by themselves. Vail tried to stop her, but the girl had already walked off. Martina couldn't believe how rude the girl had been. Vail, still worried, wondered if he had just watched something like a showdown between women. He had just made a quick comment about how the girl was special in her own way. However, Martina couldn't understand why such a proud girl would run off into the forest in the middle of the night. She wondered what the girl was trying to do. Vail also mentioned that they should cover the hole in the ceiling. He noticed that the girl didn't seem to be thinking clearly and wondered if she was all right. Martina was surprised by how kind Vail was, even though she had been acting a bit jealous of the girl. She then admitted that she was actually worried about her. Martina asked Vail if they could go look for the girl in the forest. Vail was surprised and thanked her for the idea, but Martina was more upset that the girl didn't even get to taste the vegetables they had prepared. Vail realized that Martina truly cared. Since they were going into the forest, Vail told 2 woodmen to stay behind to organize the supplies and guard the house. Meanwhile, the girl was already deep in the dark forest, using light magic from her staff to see. She was searching for something, knowing she didn't have much time left. Suddenly, she heard movement nearby and realized the carnivorous plants were active, just like Vail had warned her. Knowing it would be dangerous if they found her, she quickly decided to leave the area. Just then, she spotted a plant called lanolo growing near the dangerous carnivorous plant. She wasn't sure if she'd get another chance to find it, so she decided to try using magic to stop the monster from moving. While it was distracted, she planned to grab the lanolo, but when she used her magic, nothing happened. The carnivorous plant turned its head, let out a loud screech, and looked straight at her. She quickly realized her spell hadn't worked at all. Before she could do anything else, thick roots wrapped around her body, holding her in place. One root even covered her mouth so she couldn't scream. She started to panic, thinking she was about to be eaten. Just then, an attack flew past the monster and sliced through the roots holding her. This time, the carnivorous plant was the one trapped, caught by roots that came from the dragonwood saber. Vail and Martina had arrived just in time to save her. Vail said it was their chance to act. Martina ran over and asked if she was okay. Still confused, the girl asked why they were there. Martina said she couldn't leave her alone, so she followed her. The girl was surprised, especially since she had been rude to Martina earlier. Vail reminded them that they had to escape quickly, but the girl shouted that she couldn't leave yet. The plant she had been searching for was right next to the monster. Vail finally realized she had been looking for lanolos. Martina lifted her sword, knowing they had to defeat the monster first, but the girl said that even her magic hadn't worked against it. Vail then explained that this type of carnivorous plant couldn't be hurt by normal attacks, whether magical or physical. The only way to stop it was to pull out its 2 main roots at the same time. That would stop it from moving. The girl was amazed that Vail knew all this, but Vail couldn't tell them the real reason. He had learned it from the game in his past life. Just then, the carnivorous plant let out a loud screech as it was freed from the vines that trapped it. Vail offered to act as a distraction. He told the girls to go ahead, and Martina quickly found one of the roots. Vail confirmed that the roots were the ones slightly sticking out of the ground. The girls grabbed the roots together, and on Martina's signal, they pulled it up. The carnivorous plant suddenly stopped moving like a computer that lost power when its cord was unplugged. Martina celebrated with the girl. She excitedly told her to get the medicinal plant, but sadly the plant had been completely crushed by the shaking caused by the carnivorous plant earlier. The mood quickly turned sad. Vail walked over to the damaged herb, picked something up, and asked if it was the lanolo seed. The girl said it was, but explained that it was useless alone since the herb needed a month to grow. Vail and Martina looked at each other and said they had a way to fix that. The girl looked confused and didn't understand what they meant. When they returned to the farm, the girl couldn't believe she had made it back. Martina, on the other hand, wondered if the girl was upset with her and had left on purpose, saying she had something else to do. Still, Martina couldn't really blame her for walking away like that. Vail then asked why she needed the herb. The girl simply said she had to make a new magic potion. She explained that the herb was part of an assignment for the academy. After the girl mentioned it, Vail remembered that there was an academy in the game. He asked if it was called the Royal Academy. And the girl said yes, then asked how he knew. Vail said he just remembered the name. The girl explained she had an assignment due in a week, but now she wasn't sure if she could finish it on time. That's when Vail finally understood why she had been in such a rush. He told her that a week was more than enough time. She asked what he meant by that. Vail calmly said they would grow the seed. The girl was too surprised to speak at first, then she sighed and asked how Vail planned to do that. She said she had already tried a few experiments and none of them worked. Vail told her they would be done in 3 days. The girl was shocked and asked if that was really possible. Vail said it was, with help from his sword. He opened a small slot near the sword's handle and placed the seed inside. After doing that, he could now pull out a lanalo seed whenever he wanted. The girl didn't understand, so Vail showed her how he could create several lanalo seeds out of thin air. By absorbing seeds from different vegetables and plants, Vail had gained the ability to make more of those seeds using magical plants. It was a simple but very useful power, especially for farming. He could now grow many kinds of crops, and that number would only keep growing. Vail then decided it was time to plant the seed. As soon as he did, it quickly sprouted and turned into a young herb. Even Vail was surprised at how fast it grew. The girl was amazed too. It had only been a few minutes, but based on how fast it was growing, she guessed it would be fully grown by noon the next day. She asked what kind of magic Vail had used. Vail explained that it was all thanks to his sword, a tool made for farming. At this point, it felt more like a special item than a weapon. The girl couldn't help but laugh because she agreed that the wooden sword would break right away if Vail tried to fight with it. Vail only gave a quiet smile and the girl asked why. Vail said it was nice to see her laugh like that. The girl said she had always been like that from the start. Vail had thought she was a bit cold and hard to read at first. The girl still couldn't believe someone used a sword for farming. She paused, thinking of the right words. Then she finally thanked Vail for helping her when things got dangerous and for growing the herbs. She also said sorry for not trusting him in the beginning. Vail was surprised by how honest she was, but told her it didn't bother him at all. Just then, Martina came out of the house and said dinner was ready. When Vail saw her apron, he realized she had secretly bought one and he thought it looked nice on her. She asked if the herbs had grown and he said yes. Martina then brought out a full meal made from the tomatoes and bell peppers they had just harvested. Martina walked up to the girl and apologized for being harsh earlier. She understood now that the girl had been really nervous, and Martina admitted she hadn't been very thoughtful. The girl, now embarrassed, asked why Martina was even saying sorry. She said she was the one who messed up. Even after getting help from them, she had said some mean things. She also felt guilty for not taking good care of the vegetables. Martina apologized again and said she wasn't sure how to make it up to her. For now, she told the girl not to feel sad. As a way to make peace, she asked the girl to give the vegetables another try and said they were actually tasty. The girl looked nervous. She said she wanted to make up with her, but she seemed unsure about eating them. That's when Martina realized the girl didn't like vegetables. The girl explained that tomatoes felt too squishy, and she didn't understand why people liked the bitter taste of bell peppers. Vail simply guessed that she hated vegetables. Still, Martina asked her to take one bite. The girl agreed. As soon as she placed a slice of tomato in her mouth, her eyes opened wide. She was surprised by how good it tasted. She said it was much better than the tomatoes she had eaten before. Martina felt happy. Then the girl noticed her mana was going up. She realized the tomato was actually a flame tomato. Vail confirmed it and added that the other vegetable was thunderbell pepper. He explained that both were grown in the same field they had just visited. The girl was honestly shocked. Rare vegetables like those were very hard to grow, and most people didn't succeed. She asked Vail how he managed to grow them. Vail said it wasn't really him. He said the dragonwood saber and the dungeon's power made the vegetables grow well. He also said Martina's cooking made everything taste even better. Martina, feeling shy, said the taste came from the great ingredients. Then the girl started crying. She realized how much effort they had put into growing the vegetables and cooking the meal just for her. She didn't know what to say. Vail told her it wasn't a big deal because the plants grew fast with magic. Martina added that she marinated and prepared the food carefully for 10 minutes. The girl was touched by their hard work and told them they should be proud of what they did. Martina and Vail thought her reaction was really cute. The next day, everyone had already eaten breakfast. Vail felt happy that the freshly picked ice pumpkins turned out fine. Martina said they tasted really good. Kiara agreed and said Martina's special pumpkin soup was delicious. Seeing Martina and Kiara chatting and enjoying themselves made Vail happy. He was glad they were getting along. Then Kiara noticed Vail smiling and asked why he was looking at them like that. After the meal, Vail and Martina planned to go to Dorison. Kiara stopped them and said going through the upper forest would be faster. Vail said he had already been there. When Kiara asked how he found the place, Vail simply said he came through the dungeon. He couldn't tell her it was because of his knowledge from a game. Martina was worried about getting lost in the thick forest, but Kiara offered to guide them since she was heading to town too. Kiara mentioned that the entrance was on the top floor and dragging a cart might be a problem. Vail told them not to worry and asked both girls to get on the cart. Right away, a tree grew underneath it and lifted the cart to the top. At the top, Kiara commented that Vail's sword seemed like it could do anything. When they reached the thick forest, they noticed it was still very dark even though it was noon. Kiara pointed out the path and Martina said she was really helpful. Later, Vail and Martina looked nervous as they stepped into a store. Kiara asked what happened to their confidence from earlier. Vail said he was trying to stay calm, but he was sweating a lot and shaking. Martina told him that Gregory was a nice person. When Vail asked if she had met Gregory before, he felt a little better. Suddenly, Gregory showed up and looked like a tough guy. He asked what they wanted. Vail was shocked and couldn't say anything. Gregory looked scary and completely different from what Vail had imagined. Vail didn't even have the courage to speak to someone who looked like that. Martina suddenly greeted Gregory with a smile. Gregory was surprised to see her and asked how her first dungeon trip went. Martina told him that she was attacked by monsters right away. Gregory looked worried and asked if she was okay. Martina said she was fine because Vail had saved her. Gregory asked if that was true and Vail nervously said yes. Gregory then patted Vail on the back and called him a brave young man. Vail thought Gregory seemed like a good person. Then Gregory noticed the vegetables Vail was carrying. Vail saw this as his chance. He told Gregory that he had just started farming and wanted him to try the vegetables. Gregory picked up a tomato and said he didn't need to taste it. He could already tell from how it looked. He explained that a magician, whom Vail had helped before, had let him try one. Gregory said it tasted great and had strong magical effects. He was impressed that Vail had grown something so good at a young age. Martina and Kiara looked happy for Vail. Vail gathered his courage and asked if Gregory would consider selling his vegetables in the shop. Gregory wanted to agree, but he said there was something Vail needed to understand. He explained that while magical vegetables had strong effects, they often lacked sweetness and moisture. They were dry and didn't taste good, so most people avoided them. In this town, adventurers and knights often left for long periods, so there weren't many customers. Because of that, there wasn't much demand. Gregory said he couldn't sell something that wouldn't earn money. He reminded Vail that business depends on customers and it could be tough. Vail felt nervous, but he didn't want to give up. Gregory had already said the tomato tasted good. Vail admitted that most of the demand might come from adventurers, but he believed regular people could enjoy his crops too. He asked Gregory to at least give him a chance. Gregory was surprised. He called Vail brave for speaking up and said he found him interesting. Then he told Vail that he would give him a test. Vail and the girls were shocked. Vail was told to sell all the vegetables he brought within 3 hours in town. Each one had to be sold for 500 with no discounts allowed. Kiara pointed out that this was twice the usual price. She quietly told Vail it didn't make sense, and even Martina suggested they think it over again. But Vail still chose to take on the challenge. After an hour passed, they hadn't sold a single vegetable. Kiara complained about how Vail accepted such a difficult task. Vail was also surprised that no one was interested at all. Kiara asked where his earlier confidence had gone. Vail couldn't believe they were being ignored like this. Martina tried to calm them down, saying that arguing would only attract unwanted attention. Just then, a few adventurers stopped and asked what was happening. Martina explained that they were selling vegetables that helped restore magic power. The adventurers noticed the flame tomatoes and said it tasted bad. Vail got upset and explained that their tomatoes were actually juicy and delicious. But as soon as the adventurers saw the price, they complained and walked away, saying they could buy cheaper ones at the market. Martina suddenly remembered what Gregory had said about the vegetables having a bad reputation. Kiara admitted she used to think the same way too. Vail then realized they needed to try a different plan. While Vail was still thinking of a solution, Martina came up with an idea and asked Kiara to help. Suddenly, the two of them put on aprons and stood in front of the crowd to host a tasting event for their freshly picked vegetables. Vail told them it was a great idea. Martina said the real challenge was just starting and asked Vail to handle anyone who stopped by. Kiara complained about the dirty apron she had to wear, but Martina said it was the only one left. Martina began chopping vegetables, and Kiara helped cook by using her fire magic. Vail noticed that many people started to gather and watch. Somehow the live cooking show was drawing in a lot of attention. Most of the crowd seemed interested mainly because Martina and Kiara looked cute. After cooking, the girls offered samples to the crowd. Everyone who tasted the food said it was delicious and were surprised that flame tomatoes could be sweet. People who were just watching from the back also asked for samples. Then the mage who had visited earlier showed up and asked if she could try the pumpkins. Vail was surprised to see her again and thanked her for introducing his crops to Gregory. The woman said she should be the one thanking him. She then noticed that Vail had thunderbell peppers and ice pumpkins too. Vail told her that he had recently started growing those as well. The woman decided to buy some and said she didn't think she'd get the chance to buy them again, so she thanked Vail. He told her he was worried no one would buy the vegetables, so he was very grateful. He explained they were attracting people by giving out free tastes. The woman was surprised and said the vegetables were so good that more people should know about them. She then ordered more loudly. Some nearby adventurers heard her and got curious. The woman told them the vegetables weren't ordinary. She explained that each one could boost magic powers for different elements and also tasted amazing, perfect for mages. One mage heard her and decided to buy some too. Vail was amazed that their customers were better at convincing others than they were. The woman wished them good luck and left. Martina felt thankful to the mages, as more adventurers started buying after that. Vail was happy they finally found some customers, but Kiara reminded them that they still hadn't sold everything. Vail regretted bringing so many vegetables. Kiara pointed out that adventurers could only carry a limited amount. Then, Vail realized their next target customers would be the regular crowd. However, the girls said these people might walk away after seeing the prices. Since the vegetables cost more than regular tomatoes, and most people didn't need them to restore magic, they might not be interested. While trying to get the attention of the crowd, Vail noticed a man walking slowly, almost like a zombie. The man reminded Vail of himself back when he used to work 16-hour shifts. Vail grabbed a sample of the marinated vegetables and walked over to him. He greeted the man and mentioned how tired he looked. The man agreed. He said it was the busy season and that he hadn't had much rest. Even his lunch breaks didn't help him feel better. Vail told him he understood how that felt, and that he used to skip lunch just so he could go home earlier. Then Vail offered him a free sample of the vegetables. He said that sour food could help when someone was feeling tired. The man thanked him, took a bite, and suddenly went quiet. Vail nervously asked what he thought. The man started crying and said the vegetables were amazing. He hadn't tasted something so good in a long time. He even said he felt less tired and his face looked brighter, which Vail pointed out in surprise. People in the crowd also noticed the change. It looked like Vail's vegetables really helped with tiredness. He was surprised that even the underground water used in growing them was working this well. The man ended up buying one of each kind of vegetable, and Vail thanked him. After seeing all this, the rest of the crowd rushed over. They heard how the vegetables helped with tiredness and even tasted sweet enough for kids to enjoy. Many people came to try and buy them. Vail felt happy, knowing they would probably sell everything. Later, Vail and the girls rushed into Gregory's shop, excited to say they had sold out. Gregory said it was a huge success. When Vail asked if he had been watching, Gregory said he was, but secretly. He thought only adventurers would be interested, but even the regular townspeople loved the vegetables. This was more than he expected. Gregory said Vail's vegetables might become popular all over town. He said Vail had passed his test and decided to sell the vegetables in his store. Vail thanked him. Gregory said they now needed to finalize the supply deal and plan the next steps. He even prepared an advance payment and asked Vail to accept it. Martina and Kiara smiled at Vail, happy that their hard work paid off. Soon after, Vail went home and enjoyed a big dinner. Martina had cooked a lot to celebrate the contract. Now Vail could live peacefully as a farmer. He planned to grow crops with all his energy. He also had to start getting vegetables ready to ship and even begin working on a new treehouse. Suddenly, Vail heard Kiara warning Martina not to touch her. They were taking a bath together, and Martina had mentioned that Kiara's skin looked nice. Kiara said Martina was tickling her and then got upset, asking what Martina had been eating to grow such a large chest. After hearing all that, Vail realized he needed to make the bath soundproof. A woodman agreed to help with that later. Kiara then said she might be able to sleep well that night. Martina asked if she was going home, but Kiara said she liked the place they were in. Martina agreed, saying it was nice being close to nature and eating good food. She was happy Kiara liked it. Then, Kiara asked something unexpected. She asked if she could stay at the dungeon farm with them. Martina was surprised and said it would be a great idea, but that it would depend on Vail. She also admitted she hadn't asked Vail for permission to stay yet because she didn't have the courage. Kiara said she would stay if Martina stayed. Vail could hear their whole conversation. The girls planned to ask him together and felt nervous about it. Suddenly, Vail shouted that he was giving them permission to stay. He told them they were welcome and hoped they would live happily together. The girls were happy, but later Kiara got mad at Vail for not waiting for her final answer. Afterward, the woodman led the three to a bedroom. Kiara said the room and its furniture finally felt right. Vail was also happy with how it turned out. Martina said it was all because of the woodman, and mentioned they added some furniture to her room too. The girls thanked the woodman. Kiara told them she found some nice curtains in town and bought enough for everyone's room. Martina thought they looked cute, just what she had been looking for. The two girls kept talking about other things like cooking tools and agreed to buy some later. Vail watched them enjoying themselves and thought about on how much girls like things like that. Kiara also pointed out that Vail's room looked way too plain. Vail used to think he would live a quiet life as a farmer, but ending up in such a cheerful place like this was something he never saw coming. Just then, he remembered something. He asked if it was okay for Kiara to be away from school. He was worried that it might hurt her studies, especially since the farm was far from school. Kiara said it wasn't a problem. She explained that she was still a student, but her status was a little different. She was a research student. Even if she didn't go to class, she could still earn the credits she needed to graduate by turning in her assignments. Vail asked if she was one of those honor students, and Kiara said he was right. Usually, someone her age wouldn't become a research student. She was an exception to the rule. The others were surprised. Martina said it made sense for her because she was an adventurer, but Kiara's situation was different. She asked if Kiara had even told her parents she'd be living away from the dorms. Kiara said it wasn't a problem. Her parents always told her to do whatever she wanted. Vail got the feeling that her family situation might be complicated, but Kiara didn't seem distant from them. Kiara explained that it couldn't be helped, especially since her mom was always very busy. Martina asked what her mother's occupation was. Kiara said her mom was a magic researcher. She worked at the same academy every day and was known as one of the world's top researchers. When Vail heard the title, he asked if Kiara's mother was Seraphine Fontaine-Meyer. Kiara was surprised that he knew her. Vail said she was actually well known. In the game, Seraphine Fontaine-Meyer had a support role just like Gregory. She helped players by trading crops for useful items. Vail had no idea Kiara was her daughter, or even that Seraphine was married. Martina thought that was really cool. Kiara felt proud of her mom and said she was an amazing person. Then Vail realized why Kiara had been so nervous about her assignment earlier. She wanted to show it to her mom. Kiara said that was true. The report on the Lanolo was already finished and due the next day, but she was still worried it wasn't good enough. Martina told her not to worry because she saw how hard Kiara had worked on her research. Vail offered to go out with Kiara later if she was really that worried. Kiara was surprised and asked if that was okay. Martina told her to depend on them now, especially since she was their close friend. Vail even said they would go with her to the ends of the earth if it would help her feel better. Kiara couldn't help but laugh and said they were overreacting. She thanked them both. Vail then planned to arrange a carriage the next day through the Merchant Guild so they could all go to the academy together. Martina asked him to let her drive. Kiara was shocked to find out that Martina could drive a carriage. The next day, the three of them finally arrived at the Krentz Kingdom's Royal Minist Academy. Vail looked around and thought everything looked amazing. Martina expected the academy in the royal capital to be that big. In the middle of them stood Kiara, still looking a little nervous. Vail noticed her and told her to relax and take things slowly. He said that when people get too tense, some things don't go well. Kiara realized he was right and took a deep breath. Once she felt calmer, she said she would go the rest of the way alone and thanked them for coming with her. The two of them wished her good luck. After Kiara left, Vail suggested they look around the academy grounds while they waited, and Martina quickly agreed. They found many places where people studied magic, and each one had a lot of interesting details. Vail couldn't believe he was visiting places he had only seen on screens before. He felt really moved. They ended up in a beautiful garden. Martina said she had always wanted to see it up close, but she never thought it would actually happen. Vail asked if she had been to the academy before. Martina said yes. Because of her father's job, she often got the chance to come to the capital, but she usually just watched things from far away. Suddenly, Vail became quiet, and Martina asked if something was wrong. He said he was just curious about what her father did for work. She said he could think of her father as a kind of merchant. Vail realized that Martina might also be dealing with problems in her family. He wasn't really in a place to judge others, but he guessed that everyone had their own struggles. Just then, someone noticed Vail. It was Durk. Vail was surprised. He didn't know that Durk was attending the academy. Durk was just as surprised to see Vail. He thought Vail had left home and maybe even died. He wondered why someone like Vail would be at the academy. Vail explained that he was there as an escort because he had a job now. Durk didn't believe him. He doubted that Vail could even keep a job. But Vail said he wasn't having any trouble getting food, clothes, or a place to live. And he was even enjoying life. Durk laughed at the idea of farming. He said it wasn't the kind of job someone could just start doing right away. Vail clenched his fist but stayed calm. He said he was doing fine selling vegetables. Durk asked where he was selling them. Vail said he had a contract with the Ramal Merchant Guild. Durk was shocked. He began stuttering and asked if Vail really meant Gregory Ramal, the strict and serious guild leader. Durk got angry and pulled out his sword. He shouted that someone like Vail shouldn't be recognized by someone like Gregory. As Durk swung his sword at Vail, Martina started to worry. But Vail stayed calm. He hit Durk's hand with the back of his sword, making Durk drop his weapon. Vail told him he didn't care what Durk thought, but reminded him they were inside the academy. Durk was confused by Vail's quick reaction. He said Vail's sword skills hadn't gotten worse at all. Then he walked away saying he had another class. Martina and Durk both watched him leave. Later in the garden, Martina complained about Durk's rude behavior. She said it was disrespectful of him to raise his voice. Vail then shared that Durk was his stepbrother and that they had a bit of a rough past. Still, he admitted he also got upset and said sorry to Martina for making her worry. Martina quickly said it wasn't his fault, especially since Durk was the one who came at them with a bad attitude. Vail just laughed and told her it was okay now because those things didn't bother him anymore. Martina agreed, and the two of them stayed sitting on the bench in an awkward silence. That was when someone finally found them. Kiara happily called out to them and said sorry for making them wait. But as she ran over, she tripped on something and fell flat on her face. Vail laughed and said her entrance was flashy. Martina asked if she had managed to submit her report. Kiara said she did and shared that her mother praised her, telling her she did a great job. Kiara got excited and rushed over to tell them. Vail was glad to hear it. Kiara also mentioned that she got help from them since they were running a farm inside the dungeon. Her mother suddenly became interested in meeting them, so Kiara invited them to come to the research building. The two were surprised when they heard that. Vail tried to hide how excited he was, thinking that the famous Seraphine Fontaine-Meyer wanted to meet them. He stayed calm and said they would go inside and give their greetings. Kiara thanked them, saying her mother would be happy. As Kiara guided them inside, Martina said that everyone looked very focused on studying magic. She said they had the same look as Vail did when he was working on the farm, which surprised him. Kiara also said that Vail always looked like he was having fun when he was with the woodmen. After climbing a set of stairs, the three of them finally stood in front of a door. Kiara knocked and someone inside told them to come in. As Kiara opened the door, her mother greeted them and said sorry for the messy room. She explained that she had been too busy lately and didn't have time to clean. Vail could tell right away that she looked exactly like the person he saw in the game. Kiara's mother introduced herself as Seraphine and asked if the two guests were Vail and Martina. Vail said he was always grateful for Kiara's help. Seraphine told them not to be so formal, saying she was the one who owed them. She said the report was finished because of their help, but Vail and Martina said it wasn't a big deal. They only provided the herbs. They explained that all the research and hard work were done by Kiara, who even stayed up late to finish everything. Seraphine seemed surprised to hear how much her daughter had done, but she wasn't too shocked because she had heard something surprising from Kiara before. She told them that after Kiara turned in her report, she came running to ask something. Kiara told her it was all thanks to Vail and Martina that she worked so hard, and now she wanted permission to live with them. Kiara suddenly felt embarrassed. Seraphine smiled, happy to see her daughter so full of passion. It had been a long time since she had seen that side of her. Kiara quickly reminded her mom not to tell them, as she had promised. Vail and Martina remembered how Kiara once said she didn't need anyone's permission, but after seeing this moment, they knew that wasn't true. Seraphine asked the two of them to take care of her daughter from now on. They told her to leave it to them. Then she said it wasn't much, but she had some rare plant seeds. She wondered if they wanted to grow them. Vail asked what kind of rare plant it was. Seraphine said it was the seed of an Alron. Vail was shocked because in the game it was one of the strongest crops. But these weren't normal plants, they were living creatures. Alrons had a lot of magic and could control other plants. However, growing one and even getting its seed was very hard. Only skilled farmers could do it. Vail wasn't too worried about growing it since he had the Dragonwood Saber and an underground lake, since both were for farming. What bothered him was how valuable the seed was. He said it was too expensive to be a gift. Seraphine laughed a little and said she believed in him. She talked about how he got the underground lake, the farm, and the wooden sword he was holding. She also mentioned how carefully he grew his crops. Even Gregory had been impressed. Because of all that, Seraphine decided Vail was the right person to raise the Alron. Vail was surprised that she trusted him so much. He formally asked to take care of it, and Seraphine agreed. She told him to talk to her if he ever needed help, since it looked like they'd be connected for a long time. Vail nervously asked what she meant by that. Seraphine just told him to get along with her daughter for a very long time. At that moment, Kiara quickly stepped in and asked her mom to stop saying weird things. Soon after, the group went back to the dungeon, and Vail set up fences around the farm area. He was surprised that products like these were being sold to keep intruders out of people's homes. But he wasn't too shocked, since the Rommel company always had everything people needed. Martina said that the monster-repelling fences and barrier grass were the best ways to stay safe. The woodmen were also there to help guard the place when no one was around. Once the fences were done, Vail told the girls they should start getting the field ready for the Alron plants. While they were working on the soil, Kiara said her mother really liked Vail, and had even suggested he move to a different school. Martina wondered if it was a mistake for Vail to say no. She believed that with his skills he would have done really well. Vail told her it was okay because he liked working on his farm. He also had another reason. His stepbrother Durk went to that school, and school life might not have been great because of that. Kiara quickly realized he meant that mean guy. Martina asked if she knew Durk. Kiara said she knew a little, but she was more surprised to learn that Vail and Durk were brothers. From what she knew, Durk's family was one of the most powerful noble families on the continent, a family of knights. Martina was shocked and looked at Vail. He told them to get ready because it was going to be a long story. Vail told the girls what had happened and how he ended up working on a farm. The girls were shocked to hear how badly his family had treated him by kicking him out, but Vail said he didn't mind, because that's how he got the dragonwood saber. He felt happy with his life, growing vegetables with the girls. He was thankful they stayed with him. The girls were moved by his words. Kiara then said they should stop feeling sad and focus on making the farm a better place. Together, the three of them planted the allround seed. Martina felt excited and asked what they would plant next. But instead of picking a new plant, Kiara thought about what to name the allround. Vail didn't know what to call it either. Martina looked confused, but Vail just said he was excited to see it grow. Kiara mentioned that it usually took about a year to sprout, so they might have to wait a long time. Martina was surprised to hear that. Even with the dungeon's underground lake, Vail couldn't tell how fast it would grow. He suggested they just watch over it and wait. The girls agreed. The next morning, Vail woke up feeling strange. His eyes were still closed, his body felt heavy. It wasn't like normal pain, and it didn't feel like someone was sitting on him either. He wondered if the woodmen were playing a trick on him, but he was wrong. When he opened his eyes, he saw a naked girl sitting on top of him, asking him to wake up already and play with her. Vail froze, shocked at what he saw. After a moment, he screamed loudly. The girl asked why he was yelling. Vail quickly shouted back, asking who she was and telling her to get off him. The girl looked confused and didn't understand why Vail was suddenly upset. She said that Vail was the one who raised her. Right away, Vail realized that the girl was the allround he had just planted. The girl confirmed it and was happy he finally figured it out. But Vail remembered that in the game, the allround looked different. She was supposed to have ivy wrapped around her and not be completely naked. Still, this look had become a popular trend on social media. Even so, Vail knew he had to get her dressed quickly. They would get in trouble if anyone saw them like this. Sadly, Vail was too late. He heard loud footsteps, meaning the others were coming. The girls walked in to tell Vail that breakfast was ready, but instead, they found him with a naked girl on his bed. Everyone froze when the sheets around the allround slipped off. The girls couldn't believe what they were seeing and started to walk out. Martina looked like she was about to break down. Vail quickly covered the allround again and told the girls they were getting the wrong idea. Kiara couldn't believe that Vail had brought in a young girl, especially after the emotional moment they all shared the night before. Vail kept trying to explain that it wasn't what they thought. Then the allround asked Vail what was wrong and called him Dad. The girls were shocked to hear that. Allround said she was just calling him that because it made sense. Kiara tried to calm down the panicking Martina. Martina couldn't believe that Vail already had a daughter that old. Vail said again that they were misunderstanding everything. He asked Allround why she called him Dad. She explained that since he raised her from a seed, that made him her father. Martina was even more confused, but Kiara started to understand. She remembered that they had just planted an Allround the day before. Allround nodded and explained that she had grown up really fast. After that, the group ate breakfast. Allround joined them, and this time she used ivy to cover her body like clothes. She said the food tasted really good. Martina thanked her and explained that the vegetables came from Allround's father. Hearing that title still made Vail uncomfortable. Allround was amazed to hear there was a farm. She offered to take care of it since she was close with plants. Vail had forgotten because of everything that had happened that Allround could control plants. He then asked her to help with the farm work. Allround felt happy to be useful, but first she wanted to know if the two girls were Vail's wives and thought they might be her mothers. The girls turned red and quickly said they weren't. Vail calmly told her their names, including his, and explained that they were just friends living in the same house. He also asked her to stop calling him Dad. Allround asked why, and Vail said he wasn't married and didn't even have a partner. Allround agreed to call him by his name instead. Then she said he could just choose one of the girls to be his partner. Kiara got annoyed and pinched Allround's cheeks, telling her to stop saying things like that. Allround complained that Kiara was scary. She then said she would pick Martina to be her mother because she was kind and made tasty food. Martina was surprised and started imagining herself as Allround's mom and Vail as the dad going on a family picnic. She quickly told herself it was too soon for that. Then they all started to think about what to call Allround. They realized they couldn't keep using that name since it was the name of the plant. When Vail heard the girls, he suggested calling her Hanon. The name sounded cute to the girls and even Allround liked it. From that moment on, everyone started calling her Hanon. Vail felt that the treehouse would become more fun with her around. Now that they had picked a name for her, Vail decided to get some work done. He thought about going to the Ramal trading company to buy some clothes for Hanon. Hanon wanted to come too, but the others reminded her that her appearance might surprise people. Hanon didn't mind wearing ivy, but the group asked her to wear regular clothes. In the end, Martina lent her some clothes and Hanon joined the group. As they walked around, Hanon looked at everything with curiosity. The place was full of energy. Martina held Hanon's hand and told her not to wander off. Kiara noticed that Hanon and Martina were wearing similar outfits and joked that they looked like a mother and child. Vail said the clothes looked a bit too baggy. He wondered if borrowing clothes from Kiara would have been better. Kiara had a strange feeling that Vail was thinking something rude about her. Vail quickly said that wasn't the case. The group finally reached the trading company. Vail said he brought some vegetables. Jennifer, the receptionist, thanked him for always helping and delivering goods. Vail asked where Gregory was, and Jennifer said he was busy with a client. While waiting for the vegetables to be checked, the girls talked about picking out clothes for Hanon first. Jennifer noticed Hanon and said she looked cute. She asked where Hanon came from and where she lived. Hanon felt uncomfortable and hid behind Vail, shaking. Vail told Jennifer to calm down because Hanon was getting scared. He was surprised to see this side of Jennifer. Jennifer then told them they could go to the second floor if they were looking for clothes. Martina asked Hanon what kind of clothes she liked, but Hanon didn't have anything in mind. Martina suggested she try on as many as possible. The girls got excited and decided to turn it into a fashion show. Hanon was confused. When Hanon tried on her first outfit, everyone admired her. She didn't know how to react. Jennifer said the clothes looked good on her, but still wanted her to try more. Hanon said she didn't need to try so many. She had a hard time choosing and asked the others for help. Instead, Martina and Kiara brought out even more clothes. They slowly walked toward her, and Hanon started to worry. Hanon ended up wearing casual clothes and even frilly ones. The girls kept tossing clothes her way and Hanon didn't know what to do anymore. Vail realized the girls had completely forgotten he was there. Hanon gave up and walked over to Vail to hug him. The other girls asked what was going on. Hanon said she was getting her energy back, like how plants do photosynthesis. She said Vail had a warm feeling, and it made her feel calm and relaxed. Vail was surprised she had that kind of ability. Then Hanon noticed the girls looking a bit jealous and asked if they wanted to try it too. She took each of their hands and placed them on Vail's arms to show that he really was warm. Vail was confused and didn't understand what was going on. The girls said they felt warmed up and let go of him. Jennifer then suggested they keep going now that everyone felt better. Hanon was surprised. Vail chose to leave them for a while. Suddenly, Vail heard Gregory's shouting voice coming from the ground floor. He went downstairs and saw someone running out of the store. Vail asked if something had happened. Gregory said it was a strange situation. Then he said he was going to the guild to take on a quest and asked if Vail wanted to come along. Vail was surprised by the sudden invitation. He told Gregory that neither he nor his sword had any real fighting skills. He didn't think he would be much help, but Gregory said he had a feeling Vail's sword might be useful this time. Hearing that, Vail decided to go with him. Gregory was happy and said they should head to the guild right away. On the way, Vail asked how hard the quest was. Gregory calmly said it was S rank. Vail was shocked because S rank was the highest level, which meant it would be very difficult. He started wondering what kind of tasks an S rank quest could have. Seeing him lag behind, Gregory told him to walk faster. That is the end of the recap at chapter 7.3. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.